Welcome to Pixels to Politics, a special episode dedicated to enigmatic Elon Musk and his ever expanding empire. I'm your host, Dougie, joined by my co host, Blackheart, and tonight we are diving into the realms of Tesla, SpaceX, and beyond. From the futuristic designs of the Cybertruck to the cosmic aspirations of SpaceX, Elon's ventures have captivated the world. We'll also explore his influence in the digital arena with projects like Twitter/X and Neuralink. Join us as we unpack the controversies, innovations, and philosophies driving one of the most intriguing figures of our time. Whew. Okay. So,
I think it's kind of crazy. So do you want to know something that I always forget? Elon Musk helped co-found
what?
PayPal.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did know that. I did know that one actually.
I just think it's crazy. I mean, everybody knows him. I think kind of in the present for SpaceX, Tesla. I mean, now he owns X, which used to be Twitter. But no, I mean PayPal's where he got like all of his money, right? Like that was like his like first real like big project.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I never really put that together, but yeah, that was his first. I don't know about his very first, but I know that was like his kind of breakthrough um application. And now look where the man is.
Yeah, I think he had a few other projects before that, but they like weren't like super successful, or they were like okay, because he was kind of there at the beginning of like the internet boom, right? Where he was making websites, trying to like find like an online banking application. I think like the first one failed, and then
Mm.
he made PayPal, which ended up being like a huge success. Like it blew up. Like what was it worth? I'm trying to check right now. So it was like founded in 2000, and then by 2002, he sold it to eBay for $1.5 billion.
Oh my lord. That's so crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
which, ironically enough, in 1999, apparently it was labeled on Wall Street as one of the worst business ideas of 1999.
Wow. I'm not sure they could
What
have
if?
been more wrong.
Yeah, I don't think that take worked. I don't think that take really panned out there. But yep. Then he went on to fund, see, SpaceX in 2002, Tesla in 2004, Solar City in 2006, OpenAI in 2015, Neuralink in 2016, The Boring Company in 2016,
Mm.
and then he purchased Twitter in 2022.
Yeah, he's been a very important and controversial figure, I think. Not really for reasons that are important, but the media has kind of made him out to be polarizing when I think he's kind of tried to be apolitical. And unfortunately, their push against him has, made him choose a side. But before we jump into that, I want to talk about Tesla, and the cars, and kind of your thoughts on them. I know you own one. Um,
I do own a Tesla, yes.
yeah, and just the start, just the rise of Tesla and how it went from being something that large, already established car manufacturing companies really fought against. To there was a brief moment, I think maybe a whole year actually, where it was one of the most popular cars in the world, and I think now it's like the Neon Leaf or something, but it's still up there. And Tesla itself, I think, is the biggest or most valuable car manufacturer. Um, but it's had like such a
I mean, it's a
huge
trillion
rise.
dollar company, I
Yeah,
think, or at least it was in 2021. It was a $1 trillion company.
yeah, and it's made the fields, the car market evolve. Like he basically single handedly made that market evolve into kind of what we're seeing, today. Made hybrid more popular, made electric cars more popular, and just the involvement in electronics. What made you personally buy a Tesla? Did you like the look? You like the electronics?
So I got a Tesla, or I got my Tesla in particular because it's my parents' Tesla, or was my parents' Tesla previously. They purchased a Tesla in 2019 and they loved it. So they paid for some alterations. So they have like it's a Model 3. It had the long range, so it like instead of it having like a 150-mile range, it had like a 300 or 350-mile range.
Mm.
They also got it with like heated car seats. They got it with a few other internal features, and they also got it colored red. Which, if you didn't know, like if you don't get it in like black or not black, if you don't get it in like white or gray, you have to like pay extra. So like having like a red Tesla like isn't super common, or at least wasn't for a while. I do see them a lot more now in like places like Florida, which is where I'm currently stationed. But I got it because one, I thought it looked really cool, and two, my parents raved about it. Um, Everybody that I knew that owned a Tesla was super happy with it. They loved it. Always talked about how awesome it was. Obviously, I was never really a fan of going to gas stations ever. Um, I've lived in some places where the gas stations that like were on my way to and from work were like either like pretty dirty or like not the most upstanding places to be. Um, and I'd always kind of heard that like, well, it may be a little inconvenient, or sometimes you have to go a little bit further out of your way for like a Tesla charging station, but it's usually going to be in a nicer area, um, which has been true so far.
So, what have you thought of the car so far?
That's been pretty good. So I've had it now about a year and a half. And I will say that it's nice not to have to like go in for oil changes. You do still have to get tires rotated, obviously, but it's one less maintenance thing to worry about. I haven't had any issue where I'm like, oh, I'm about to like run out of fuel or energy before I can get to a charging station. The car is really good about like if you're on a road trip and you use the car's GPS, it'll tell you like, hey, recommend stopping here along the way. And like if for some reason like you get stuck in traffic or something, it'll update and be like, hey, since you had to burn a little extra in traffic, maybe stop at this place, which is a little closer. It's pretty smart. I do not use auto drive, although I did just get like a free trial to use it for like 30 days or something.
Ooh,
All for the small price of, giving Tesla access to data for it.
yeah.
um, which obviously is valuable to them. They're trying to test that stuff out. I might do that here soon. The only issue I've had with it is so before I went on vacation this last spring, I it was raining and I put my car in the garage and left it there. And then when I came back 2 weeks later, my car was squeaking, like it squeaks when I turn.
Oh,
And the reason for that is a pretty common problem, I think. I'm taking it in on Friday to get looked at, but the common thing that I've heard is that there's like this like joint thing that is not like moisture gets in there, and it happens in wet climates. And basically, the fix is to get it replaced and get the water out, put it back in.
damn.
Um, but it's a pretty minor fix. Here it happens all the time, but yeah. Oh, one other thing I don't like, this isn't like it's Tesla's fault, but it's other people's fault. The insurance for it is like really high. Like really, really high. So I used to have like a Nissan Altima, and I'd pay like what $500 a year for insurance. And then with my Tesla, it's like I think it's like 14 or 1500, or yeah, 1500.
Why is it
So it's
so much higher?
because the car is worth more. It
Oh,
holds value better. It's harder to replace. Um, and there may be other things I don't know, right? Like a lot of these are like based off like statistics, right? Like, oh, like if you drive this car, you're more likely to get in an accident, or if you're this demographic, something like that could play in. But more like generally overall, it's just because the car is more expensive, it's hard to replace, it's harder to find like people that can service your car, that sort of
mm,
thing.
I gotcha. There's a guy I follow on YouTube, and his channel is just called like AI Driver, and he has like complete access to the full self-driving betas and stuff. And then the progress on that is so crazy, so crazy. I mean, he'll take it through, um, pretty active areas. He drives in like parking lots. He doesn't drive it; the car drives itself through these areas, and it is so freaking good at, base just driving, is good at driving itself around. Um, so I cannot wait for you to experience that and then hear your opinion on it, because watching it take place, I'm just sitting there with my eyes open, like I just can't believe it. I mean, there's also the auto taxis that are kind of popping up all over the place now too.
Yeah, I would love to see a future soon where everyone, like all driving is just automatic, because that's going to save so much on traffic. Because most traffic, even like super crowded cities, is not based off of infrastructure, but it's based off of like human error.
Yeah.
So it would really free up a lot of people's time. Think about what you could do. Like instead of driving, like let's say your hour, like you have like a 30-minute commute. That's 30 more minutes to sleep on the way, or it's 30 more minutes to like read the news or to talk to your family, or play video games. Do whatever you want,
Read a book.
which would be pretty nuts. Yeah, that would be. Play a little game of League on the way to work. Good
Oh
way to start
yeah.
the day.
No, the technology is so crazy. I think it's really easy for us, when we see an experience, it's just because we're surrounded by it all the time, to just be like, wow, that's pretty neat, but it's not perfect yet, so who cares? Meanwhile, you go back 50 years, imagine the people from that, just 50 years ago sitting in that car watching it drive by itself, they'd probably think it was witchcraft. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell is
I
this?
mean, remember, like, I think people also don't like realize like like didn't it used to be that you could have like like alcohol in your car, like like drinking beers and stuff, like
Oh
or
yeah.
seatbelts. Seatbelts was the one. The seatbelts was the one that was like super recent. Like the mandatory
Oh yeah,
seatbelt thing was like actually pretty recent, right? Like it's just so crazy.
for sure.
But I think especially once you get to a point where um like it's all AI driving, you're gonna see like so many problems like go away, and it's gonna make the AI better to only have to drive against like other AI, right?
Yeah, for sure. The unpredictable nature of humans tends to cause the most amount of problems.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, it's trained on the best human driving activity they can find. They like scan through all of the hundreds of millions of hours of video that they have already collected, Tesla specifically, and then they look for the best examples of how the car should act in different situations, and then teach it to the AI, and then the AI, practices those situations. And they've made such huge strides in making the driving more human-like. So it's not really something we think about, because we're human. We're gonna treat it driving in the best way that like suits us, which is things like, maybe letting the car roll in certain areas that you wouldn't, that a robot wouldn't, right? A robot's just gonna stop
Hmm.
when it needs to stop, and go, like immediately jump to the speed limit when it can. These are not like human things. You slowly get there. You roll instead of just completely hitting these jarring stops, and they've made huge strides in just making it drive more human like, and that's helped human drivers kind of understand what the car is going to do next too. So it's been just amazing watching these updates take place. They just updated the beta with parking, and I watched it parallel park, and I mean it was a tight spot, and it did it just fine. It did just fine. I got right in there. It was so lined up perfectly. There was no mistake. Um, there I They haven't done rear driving yet, driving in reverse, but
Hmm.
uh yeah, it's getting there. It's definitely getting there. I don't think it'll be too many years longer before uh people are just not driving their car. There's an AI driving it for them, which is just so
Yeah.
awesome.
not to be not to be like a Debbie Downer, but would you like to hear a story about someone who used self-driving but got into an accident with it?
Sure, I've heard a few myself already, but go ahead, hit me.
Yeah. So I have this friend, and they were basically out super late, and they were trying to use the self-drive or the auto drive
Hmm.
to get them home. And basically, they hit a patch of road where, like, so one of the things, at least in the older like versions of this, the way it would keep you in the lane is like you have the cameras that are able to see, like, okay, there's the middle line, and there's like the line on the end of the road. And they got to a part of the road though where there was no line on the edge of the road.
Hmm.
And so the Tesla literally drove them off a curb and like into a tree.
Oh my god.
And they
Is
lived through it but the car was totaled. So
damn. That's crazy. Is this
yeah.
is this the is this pre AI where it was just done on code? Because it sounds like that's the time when it was using code, like programming.
That I don't know. I do not know what time that was.
Hmm.
But aside from that though, I haven't really heard any other massively terrible stories. And I will say that the Tesla, when not in auto drive, but in normal drive, it feels really good. I love driving
Hmm.
my Tesla. Like it feels really good, like being able to accelerate so fast to get through, tight timings and in traffic, and being able to like get away from bad drivers. And
Yeah.
it's always good about beeping at me, like if like a car in front of me is like stopping or slowing down or hitting on its brakes, and like I don't notice it, or it'll beep like right as I notice it, depending. Um, it's just really good. I've had no issues with it, so it's been great. I definitely recommend it, especially if you're in the market for a luxury electric car. Like I think they're very solid.
It's good. I've everyone I know loves them too, and I know so many people are just like, I want to buy one, I want to buy one. So I mean, we see it all over the place now. I mean, you can't go more than 10 feet outside the house without seeing at least one pass by or just parked on a driveway. They're just so everywhere.
Now, I
Uh,
will say Florida is kind of like a unique place because it has like weather that's perfect to drive a Tesla year round. One of the problems that my parents did have with their Tesla, both the old one and this new one, is if it gets below a certain temperature, they couldn't go out to like a supercharger to charge it, or they couldn't take it outside. Like it wouldn't start or whatever, which
ooh,
is a downside and usually only happens in very, very, very frigid temperatures, like in a lot of the like the worst places that winter can happen in the Midwest. But that happens in normal cars too. Normal cars can freeze in low temperatures, like the gas tank can freeze if you're like under a quarter tank. So there's precautions that you can take to mitigate those effects. But depending on where you live, you may have to try harder for it than other places. May not be worth it. May not be feasible. Whatever.
that's fair. What do you think about the look of the Cybertruck?
I think the Cybertruck looks like a PlayStation One car.
What does that mean? Is that good or bad?
Like, go look up graphics from the PlayStation One era, and you will see what I mean. But no, I think it. I don't know. Like, it looks a little silly to me. Like when I hear truck, that's just not what I imagine as a truck. You know what I mean? Not to say that it doesn't perform well, not to say that it doesn't serve like a focus, but like it just calling it a truck seems weird when it doesn't look anything like a truck, right? Like, the Model 3, the Model X, the Model Y, those all look like cars. You can call them electric cars. When I see that and you call it an electric truck, I'm just like, that doesn't look like a truck. You
I
might as
think
well call that like a mega electric car, and I would have been more okay with it.
I've heard a lot more criticism about the look of the truck than about the cars for sure. The cars all look so sweet to me, but the truck I think is like, I don't know if I hate it or love it, but I do like that it's different. I do like that. I think you don't see people take such a risk. So I think his previous successes kind of make him take further and further risks. I mean, that thing is so different than a lot of what we've seen before, and I can't wait to start seeing those all over the road too.
Yeah. Kind of getting away from like the car aspect for Tesla. I did hear something kind of interesting one time. I don't remember like who it was, but I remember hearing this testimony of like Tesla in like its kind of middle days, like maybe in the mid like 2010s. They had like tried to get this investor guy to invest, and he was like, "Nah, like why would I invest in like this car company over others?" It was like before Tesla like really blew up.
Mhm.
And then his son actually convinced him to instead, because he's like, "Well, Dad, don't look at it like a car company. Look at it like a data collection company.
Oh,
Because like look at all the data they're collecting. Because like you have to connect to the internet. You have like data that gets packaged up and sent up to Tesla. You get driving data, GPS data, all this other stuff like what music they're listening to when they're driving, um, settings they like in their car." He's like, "This is just a data collection company, and you should view it that way, and it makes it way more valuable." And then that guy ended up investing and said it was like one of the best things he'd ever done, um, because that data is very valuable. Data in general is very valuable, which is why companies collect it and sell it when they can, or
yeah.
buy it and use it to market their own products more effectively.
it's an area that I think Tesla has such a huge head start on a lot of other car companies because they came with all those cameras built in, and obviously all the collection happening, pre full self driving. Um, and so maybe they knew ahead of time that they were going to be able to use that data to teach the AI, like how best to drive. A
Yeah,
lot of other
I
companies
mean,
don't have access to data like that. They don't. A lot of other car companies don't, and they're just now partnering with other tech companies to get that data.
yeah, I think Tesla. I think it's pretty safe to say that Tesla was like on the forefront of that. I mean, just the fact that it was an electric car and came with all these extra gadgets put it in a position to be that sort of like initial collector. And now companies, like you said, they're playing catch up.
Yeah, now it's just an incredible story. But it doesn't even end there. That in itself, Tesla and Cybertruck and the full self-driving AI, that itself could be its own, full arc for any human on this planet. But no, he continues, and he does SpaceX and wants to colonize Mars is his grand goal for the human race. um, but sometimes it's just so crazy to think how needed his companies ended up being to well, just us in this time, our government and us as people, as like this space race, space race part 2 kicks off. So, um, but yeah,
Is now a
no,
good time to transition to SpaceX?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Sure. What would you like to say about SpaceX, or should I start?
I mean, you can start if you want.
Well, SpaceX has actually been around longer than most people think. It's been around since 2002. Started as a nonprofit with stated goals being supporting renewable energy in pediatric research and education, as well as developing safe artificial intelligence to benefit humanity.
Oh wow, I didn't know any of that.
Yep, those were its initial stated goals. And eventually, it kind of split off into what became OpenAI in, I
Huh.
think, 2016, 2015, 2015. Um, but yeah, so obviously it's a private spacefaring industry. It had a lot of roadblocks to meet. I think I remember seeing like in the like 2010s, like when I was in high school debate, a lot of people would criticize SpaceX because that was when they were like, oh, we can do like government sized projects. We can go to like the International Space Station. We can replace, the Russian customers because we used to rely on like either NASA or Russia to get us up to the space station, right? But like they were having some problems and they were like, no, no, we can do it. And they're like, no, you can't. No, you can't. Um, and then they did. And that was kind of like what started getting them on the map, as well as the successful test of reusable rockets.
Oh my goodness, that was something I wanted to talk about because a friend of mine, I had no interest. I didn't even know that much about Elon or SpaceX or even Tesla. And I just remember my friend messaging me, a really smart dude who is currently an engineer, and he's like, "You got to watch this." And it was just that first successful test of the reusable rocket, and it going up and then coming back down and landing, and it was so incredible. I mean, it was to me, it was like watching the first time the shuttle went up. Like it just the amount of tech that must have went into that to ensure that it landed the way it did, and I was just in awe the whole time. I really was. I almost cried.
Yeah. Well,
It's
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was like a large period of time where like people were like, this is either impossible or
yeah,
not feasible enough to even be worth pursuing for
yeah,
like X amount of years. And they were like, well, how about you watch this and hold my beer?
yeah.
And they did it. And
No,
it was
that
just like,
yeah.
whoa.
That's exactly what it was like. I mean, that's what it was. Exactly like that. Everyone said it wasn't possible. Um, but they did it, and watching it happen live, I mean, it was so incredible. And I don't even think that many people kind of, yeah, as far as the majority of America, like I don't even think they realize how insane that moment was. Like that was such a crazy. That technology is going to be used from here on out for quite a while, like for a long time. Um,
Yeah. Which, in case people don't know, the reason that reusable rockets are important, there's a few reasons. Like one, they use less fuel, and two, since you can use them more than once, they end up having like less cost because rockets in general are very expensive. So if you can like launch something and then recover the rocket for future use, you know you're cutting down on like the resources you need, like all the precious metals, um, and just able to reuse it over and over again. It's supposed to be like way better for the environment and for the bottom line. Um, Either which one.
yeah, we really needed uh, a new way to get into space, literally land on another planet and take off again, and to do it quite frequently, more than once a year. We needed that technology, and watching it come to fruition was so crazy. And now we're seeing I'm forgetting the shuttle's name, the shuttle they use.
Oh, the one that goes to what, the International Space Station,
No, no, their shuttle, the SpaceX shuttle, the
the
space shuttle.
Dragon,
Oh yeah, the Dragon. That's what it's called. The Dragon spacecraft. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That has been in testing now
or the
for
Falcon
these.
9. So it just depends what they're launching, right? Like the Dragon is their passenger one, and then you have the Falcon, which is like the what they use to like get Starlink up, which Starlink
Oh
is
yeah.
also a thing that SpaceX does. Like that is massive and also way ahead of what other countries, even like whole countries. Like imagine this company like has greater resources and manpower or just greater feats with limited resources and manpower than like most countries can muster. Like Russia and China look at what SpaceX does and they start salivating at the mouth. They're just like, holy crap, like this is crazy. Like this is the future. And like they're gonna try to emulate it. But like they may be a ways off, which is crazy to think about. Like imagine if it takes China like another decade or two with like how smart they are and how many billions of people they have to replicate this, like that's crazy. That just shows how far ahead. Like, I mean, 20 years, 25 years is like such a long time. Hell, even 10 years would be a long time.
Yeah. No, you're right. What SpaceX has done with even just the satellites, the low orbit satellites, is incredible. They've just really pushed technology to. I mean, they're just frontiering it. They're at the frontier. They just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And we have reusable rockets. We have these satellites that use, uh, laser communication to give anyone at any point on the globe, what is it, like 45 ping internet?
I mean, hell, during the Ukraine crisis, like that was like Ukraine's like sole prevent or not preventable. It was the survivable communication system. Like when Russia was trying to like, cut off Ukraine from the rest of the world and keep them from posting on social media and keep them from communicating with like other countries. Like by jamming satellites or taking over cell phone towers and stuff. Like Starlink was like their lifeline.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that was a big deal for Elon himself. He's really tried to stay as uninvolved as he can, but he's become such a cornerstone for operations, well, just global operations, that it's almost, I mean, it is just straight up impossible for him to not be involved in geopolitics. And his satellites being used was, uh, it caused controversy. They both, China and Russia, have both threatened those satellites now, and said that they could be potential targets because of the capabilities that they have, um, and that they've already performed. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, we're Elon has become he's kind of become an enemy to whole nations. um,
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time a company or like a private entity has become an enemy of a whole country or like a target in a time of war or whatever. I mean, hell, like wasn't like literally every factory just bombed to shit during World War II in Europe? Like
yeah, that's true. You're not wrong.
it just, I mean, all these companies that used to make, like oh, like we made sewing machines and now we make Gatling guns, and oh, we make uniforms and now we make soldier uniforms, or oh, we used to make luxury cars, now we make tanks and other stuff. Like it just any company has like the technological prowess to start making things that government's enemies would want taken away.
Yeah,
And this is just more of like a technological spin, like a modern day spin on that.
I suppose what we could be seeing is like the the start of something similar or akin to Lockheed Martin or Boeing or you know maybe this. I mean, obviously they already have contracts with SpaceX, but maybe there's a world where all of a sudden that Cybertruck gets real tanky. Maybe it does end up with a mounted gun, or maybe China and Russia do have a right to fear the satellites and what they can do. But in general, just the technological and engineering aspect that's gone into their work. I think they even use a different rocket fuel than what is normally used, and I think they kind of made it. They came up with the formula themselves, so they really built a lot of things from scratch. I know he said NASA played a really large role in helping them get SpaceX off the ground, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
Yep.
mean, just those two companies, And again, we can just stop with one and be like, wow, that was what an incredible guy. But we get to keep going.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I will say before we end today's episode, we should talk about one more of his companies.
yeah, I mean, I want to talk about three more of his companies.
Well, which three do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about X, previously Twitter. I want to talk about Neuralink and Gronk, Grok AI. I don't know what he calls it, which is kind of it's tied into Twitter or X now. But yeah, I want to make sure we cover all of his work. We're gonna do Neuralink. I think that would be really short because we don't have too much information on other than kind of what it's
What
already
about the guy
being used
who
for.
used his BCI to play Civ 6?
I love that so much. So Neuralink is a chip. I think it's the size of like a dime, maybe a little larger, and they implant it. It sits on the top of the brain, and it's right now it's being used to help paraplegics communicate with the computer essentially. And the stories that have been coming out is the one of the first things the man who was signed up first to get tested on was he used it to play a video game all night long. Which you know, I respect that a lot. He picked Civ, so good on him. But the fact that this surgery only took place, I think, last month, and the sign up only, it's only this has all kind of happened this year. It's only been 4 months, uh, it, and we already have that much progress. It's crazy, crazy, you know.
Yeah, I think there's been a big push. I mean, I know there's like some Northern European countries working on BCI, and obviously Neuralink is working on BCI, which BCI brain computer interface, um, which is what Neuralink more or less is. I mean, it's more aspirational than just like letting your brain control electronics. It's meant to be like a wide network where you can like connect yourself to like devices and or other people, which would be kind of crazy. Like the the potential for Neuralink, I think, is like insane. Like it's
Yeah,
so crazy. I mean, like, and kind of going back to like, oh, like if we just stopped with one company, we would call this person mega successful. So like he's got one company that like revolutionized online banking. He's
yeah,
got one that like pushed electronic luxury cars like into mainstream and also data collection. Then he's got one that's like aspirationally going to go colonize Mars and like has done all this crazy stuff with communication satellite and making reusable rockets. And then he's got one that's like, oh, we're going to like explore more about the human brain. We're going to like link it to like devices. We're going to like take away, like, we're going to make controllers obsolete or keyboards. It's like, what? like,
yeah, yeah.
like,
No,
oh my gosh. Like, I mean, granted, a lot of that's just theoretic stuff, but
well,
like, if it comes to pass, it'd be like insane.
so normally, I mean, right, it is still theory, but they've already made just so much progress. I have all my money bet on Elon. I'll just say that much. I know he gets doubted a lot, but I just have it all bet on him. I know he's known for saying something is going to happen a lot earlier than it does. Um, but I I very easily see a world where most of what he says is true. And it's not only just because he says it, but because it seems like our government also kind of believes it. He gets a lot of backing from not just our government, but outside companies too, and a lot of smart people look at him now and go, yeah, I could see that happening, and he gets a lot of investment. And I would say that the only investment he's missing out on are from the people who just don't agree with his political views.
Either that or he proposes technologies that go against what their own interests and investments are.
Sure, yeah, 100% agree with
Like I
that.
would say, I would venture to guess that like a lot of, and I mean maybe this is a little tinfoil hat of me, but I think it also just makes a lot of sense that a lot of the negative publicity that Tesla gets, either in terms of their cars or their trucks, is from either like oil companies or like gas stations, like that sort of whole empire of stuff.
For sure. He's
Because the more his cars get used, the less money they're gonna make.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's no doubt. I don't think that's nearly as tinfoil uh as some of the other theories that I've said out loud. But um but
That's not saying there isn't criticism of him. I mean,
yeah.
we talked a little bit about it, right? Like he sometimes overpromises things. He's kind of a little bit of a memer. He has a kid with like a really fucking weird name.
Oh yeah.
Like
I will say I think
he
he's
also wants to like. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I think he's resonated with our generation a little more than, some of the other billionaires that have come and gone. Like he's definitely impacted us and has been a little more relatable, from the perspective of communication than other billionaires that we've seen. He will get in there and drop a meme or two, or drop a meme or two every day. Um, he's not scared to make really funny jokes. Like he's not scared to start a little Twitter argument. I mean, that stuff is fucking funny, and it resonates with us. It really does. And it's almost started a cult worship of him. We didn't even talk about Dogecoin and how people buy
Oh
into
yes.
that.
I remember
um,
that. But speaking of like memery and like reaching out to people, maybe that's a good segue into talking about X, formerly known as Twitter.
sure, Twitter tax. This is a big one. I kind of want to mention the acquisition of Twitter gave him access to the archives, and he ended up dumping all that and exposing a lot of uh fingers in the cookie jar from our government. Um, Not to point out a specific side of the government, but it showed how much influence was taking place on behalf of the government. The government was telling Twitter to shadow ban people, which shadow banning is kind of when you make it so that their tweets and it's not put on the algorithm. People don't have as much it's not shown to as many people. And so it was really limiting certain. It was Senate members, literally Senate members of our Senate getting silenced by a company, which that was a really big deal. And Elon, when he acquired Twitter, he immediately dumped those on the internet and was like, "Hey, I am not getting caught for this shit later." It was like, "Hey, check this out." um, and so that was a whole big deal. I respect him a lot for doing it. It actually started a lot of Senate hearings, and now it's kind of peaked into, well, how much influence should our government have in social media, and that's kind of an ongoing talk right now. There's like talks about bills getting passed to prevent it or um, limit it, and just really kind of flesh that out. So that was a really big deal. But anyways, he acquired X, and now we have this. To be honest, I didn't really use Twitter. I don't know. Were you a user before he bought it?
No, I'm still not a user.
Okay. Well,
So yeah.
I hate to say it, but I've used it a lot more. I've definitely used it more now than I ever did before. The only time I ever used it before was maybe when someone sent me something, but um, now
Remember
I've
when everybody was like X is acquired by or Elon Musk is changing X too much. Well, like we're gonna go to a different platform, and then like none of those people left.
yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a common phenomenon here where somebody's getting elected or someone's doing something and everyone's just, we're leaving the country or we're gonna get off, we're not gonna use it, and then and they don't do it. So it's pretty funny. I know the media likes to say that X has like lost is losing users. It is wrong. They're just lying. This is a common thing with the media when it comes to Elon. They love to bash the car, they love to bash the truck, and they love to bash now X. And it's actually shown that X is growing in users worldwide. So I did hear the argument that X is different now in terms of it's kind of full of uh just classic internet stuff, like porn and bots and just a lot of like white noise that comes with the internet. So I think that's fair. Personally, I think that those things are just a consequence of freedom, free speech, and I would rather that kind of get dealt with versus the opposite of, okay, well, here's this platform that everyone uses and it's just being controlled and there's like a narrative and blah blah blah, lots of barking.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, if you're going to support free speech, you have to support like all free speech, right? Not just the type of speech you want.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big criticism as well of Twitter, right? Like the big example that sticks out to me, and again, my experience with Twitter is not super high, but it's just the thing that got brought up at work a lot was like when Twitter banned Donald Trump for hate speech, right? Hold on, let me see exactly what Donald Trump said that got him banned from Twitter.
Yeah, I'd forgotten they banned him from Twitter, but that is a
Let's
really
see.
yeah. Go ahead.
Um, let's see. Said it violated the company's rules. Um, let's see. What exactly did he say though? So the statement from Twitter was, and I quote, after a close review of recent tweets from @RealDonaldTrump account in the context around them, specifically how they are being received and interpreted on and off Twitter, we have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement of violence. So it wasn't for any tweet in particular, but it was just for overall, um, just what he was saying, right, about like the election,
Uh,
the
yeah.
2000 election, because it was so he got banned in 2021 because he would say things like, you know, election was rigged, election stolen, that sort of stuff. Right? Just generally, like not that he said any of that stuff specifically. I mean, he probably did or might have. That would not be outside the realm of possibility. But they like didn't ban him for anything in specific other than like. So the one that kind of sticks out to me, the part of this that sticks out to me is where like how they are being received and interpreted,
It's a
which is
very
kind of it's crazy that Twitter would jump into my mind and tell me how I'm interpreting things.
it's a
But
very dangerous uh line
I mean,
right
it's
there, I
thought
think.
policing. It's thought policing. It's pretty
Yeah.
much what that is.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, so he gets banned in general for like saying things that Twitter thinks is going to lead to violence, which, okay, that's fine. But like, you have like Ayatollah Khomeini from Iran, who's like, I want to fucking kill all the gay people. I want to kill all the Jews, like death to America. And you still have him on your platform. It's like, what? Like, what? You kidding me? Like, what about these ISIS dudes that are running around talking about how amazing ISIS is? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're gonna ban fucking at the time was like former president of the United States, and that was crazy. It would
Yeah.
be one thing if he was like, oh, like gather at this place, we're gonna go retake the Capitol or whatever. Maybe okay, like, but I just it was it's kind of stuck out like thought policing and that with the evidence that Elon provided of like certain people being shadow banned or silenced or leaning a certain way kind of lends credence to those theories that Twitter was kind of being bent in a way that was meant to enforce a certain opinion for the benefit of people that were sitting in power. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they were on, but like that's a pretty murky thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I think while obviously currently X gets a lot of criticism for content that is on there, which is not surprising considering it was following the freedom of speech rules. I definitely prefer this way more over whatever the hell authoritarian dictatorship nonsense was going on before. Like, I don't care what crazy excuses they had. That is wild. That it was absolutely wild. So I mean, Elon sees it, and so does quite a few. I know Joe Rogan has mentioned it a few times, but they see it as like, kind of saving. They saved the town square. Um.
yeah,
So yeah.
I think people just need to get comfortable with like. I feel like there's been like a shift in society over the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years. It just seems like we're getting so polarized in terms of opinions. And it's like, if you don't agree with me or don't say what I think, then like you're, bigoted or you're stupid or you're whatever. Like, I feel like the art of compromise is becoming more and more rare, or like it at least seems more and more rare in an online space. Like in person, people can be um, pretty compromising or pretty understanding, especially if you talk in like a polite way and aren't just like screaming. But I think on the internet, it's so easy to default to you disagree with me, I'm going to get angry and I'm going to like keyboard warrior you to death.
Yeah, I hard agree. Um, I was watching a podcast earlier, and it was this guy, and he was talking about social media's harmful effects on kids and blah blah blah. Um, and it
Wait, which podcast?
Joe Rogan's podcast. Of course, it
Okay.
is Joe Rogan's podcast. Uh, but they're just I don't know. Like the guy was clearly smart, and I think a lot of people are smart, but there does seem to be a disconnect between the reality of the internet and the reality of the world. These are very different things. And while it's great that everyone has, a voice on the internet, I think that's fantastic. Everyone else, when they're speaking on the internet, you kind of need to like take it with a grain of salt. Like you don't really need to think about it that much. You can just click away. You can just ignore it. Like it's not a big deal, man. Like but everyone gets so heated about it. They just feel the need to get on there and start slamming on the keyboard in a reply, and then someone else reads it. It's like, now it's my turn, and then they start slamming, and it's just like,
Oh, you misspelled your.
yeah, you misspelled your, got him.
Got him. Slash meet all. Just
Yes,
slash meet all.
slash mute all. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I'm content with X. I hope it keeps growing. I think it's fine. I think there'll be a creation, and there's already some spaces for people who are a little more soft, as not offensive as that word can be, or they just don't want to see that shit. Like they want to sit in an echo chamber. That's fine. There are spaces for that. Their threads, I think, is probably gonna have a slow growth, but it'll grow. I think who Jack Dorsey is the guy who founded Twitter. I think he went and started a new one. That one I've heard is pretty, more for people who enjoyed the previous Twitter. Uh, so it's fine. I think there was a consolidation of space just because this technology is still pretty new, and so people kind of congregated into one, and people haven't always agreed, and naturally we've kind of segregated ourselves in our groups, and that just kind of hasn't been a thing on the internet. The internet's just been a cesspool of everyone in one place at one time, and now we're kind of separating groups into different areas, which is fine if there's plenty of space on the internet for everyone to be comfortable. Um, X can be what it is. I forget Jack Dorsey's crap, but there's that. There's Threads, which I haven't checked out Threads, but I know a lot of people have started to, especially influencers, have started to make some. Um, I imagine if the TikTok ban goes through, that'll be kind of a different space that people can interact with. Maybe people feel more comfortable on there. So there's a lot more players in the field now, and people can kind of spread out and feel a little safer, or more amongst them, people like them, as these these platforms grow. So yeah, that's my TED talk.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we have time for maybe one more, which is the one that you really, really want to talk about, right? Which is Grok AI, if I'm not mistaken.
uh, yeah. So I the knowledge there is kind of small. I think its goal has just been kind of it's been similar to X actually, where it's to have an AI that isn't biased and kind of its sole purpose would be to seek out the truth, which I think is actually really good to pair with X for its purpose. Um, because when you have a platform like X and everyone's just kind of spitting information as it comes, they're taking pictures and posting online. Hey, look at this event going on. You kind of do need something to verify these things. And the current method of verifying whether or not people are telling the truth, or whether or not the images you're seeing are true, or the videos you're seeing are true, um, I mean that is a task that only AI could do in real time. So having one that its sole purpose is to do that, I think is brilliant. It's about to get rolled out, or it is rolled out to premium members and or premium plus, and then it'll be premium, and then I assume eventually once it gets cheaper to run these models, um, it'll just kind of be doing things in the background on X. It does have some other purposes where I think he wants it to like be understand the physics of the universe and stuff. I don't know how far he'll get with that, but I do know.
Do you, well, I was going to ask, do you know what Grok AI is modeled after or like what the inspiration was?
No, I can't remember. I forget what he said it was.
So this is straight from their website.
Yeah,
So Grok is an AI modeled after a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
that's right. That's
So
right.
it's intended to answer almost everything and anything, and far harder, even suggest what questions someone should ask. Grok is designed to answer questions with a bit of wit and has a rebellious streak, so don't use it if you hate humor.
Yeah.
A unique and fundamental advantage of Grok is that it has real time knowledge of the world via the X platform. It will also answer spicy questions that are rejected by most other AI systems. Grok is still a very early beta product, the best they could do with 2 months of training, which is how long it took them to train the AI. And so expected to improve rapidly with each passing week and with your help. And then the part where they talk about why they're building it. So they have two big aims. The first one is to gather feedback and ensure we are building AI tools that maximally benefit all of humanity. And then the other is to empower research and innovation.
Yeah.
Obviously, those are just the stated goals, right? Those are all always going to sound like well tailored and cool, but
Sure.
um, basically, it's supposed to be like a more, I don't want to say more usable, but it's like it'll cover more subjects, right? Like I was using Bing's AI earlier today
Hmm.
to create images of a character for a D&D game I'm playing. And I tried to like put in the prompt that I wanted this character, like, oh, it's like a red haired woman, green eyes, muscular, wearing like a red and white dress. And Bing wouldn't create that image because using the word muscular was outside of its terms of service.
Really? Wow.
Yes, but I could get around it by saying physically strong, and then it would make it one that like had her like with like big arms, you
That's
know.
so silly. That's so silly.
Um, what was another one? I think there was like another one that I was like, really, that's not allowed. And I'm trying to remember what I put in the prompt, but it was um, like she was smiling like flirtily, right? Like having like a flirty smile,
Oh,
and that was not allowed. And I'm
that's a
just
no-no.
like, yeah, just ugh, man, those smiles, man, they're just a little too much. Like
Too much
I get
shoulder,
why
too
they
much
do that,
shoulder.
right? You don't want kids to just go on there and be able to like make porn or whatever. But like I think there will be, because if you limit AI and like what it can answer or talk about too much, then like you risk like leaving subjects that you don't want to ask a person about unanswered, right? Like what if I'm I don't know, like let's say I'm a 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid, and I like want to learn about like the birds and the bees, right? Or like a young woman who like doesn't have a mom who like needs to understand like what a period is, right? Like how is she supposed to get that if she doesn't want to ask a person, right? Too embarrassed to ask dad, none of her friends are going through it, doesn't want to ask her teachers, but like She can't go ask Bing's AI because it's not going to talk to her about it. But this one theoretically could. It'll cover basically a wider range of subjects that might be blocked by other platforms.
Yeah, I think again, it's filling a niche where Google and Microsoft or OpenAI have kind of they've left a hole. Um, and again, Elon kind of fills the space of, well, they're they're going to limit their AI, well, ours is going to be a little less limited, and by a little less, I mean a lot less. um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all, and I think Grok kind of comes with an advantage that not a lot of those companies have, and that is the real time information feed that is just constantly, that is X. It's very quick, very fast. I mean, it's the equivalent of having a simulator that is just up to date all the time and just ready, and you can answer. You can again, you can ask those questions right away and figure out what the hell is going on much more quickly than the other two models can. The other two big models, anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
I think this one, if it's really going to be that lot, like it's going to have like live data and be up to date. Imagine how good of a virtual assistant that would make, right? Like you always see it in sci-fi movies, right? Where like the main character wakes up and the AI assistant's like, "Oh, like, good morning, Mr. Wayne. Like blah blah blah. It's going to take you 10 minutes to get to work today due to traffic." Like you wouldn't be able to have that without live stream AI.
True, you're not
If
wrong.
your data stale, you wouldn't be able to have that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I do think Elon is aware of that, and that's why he kind of cut people off the feed and it said that, hey, if you want to use X for your AI, then you need to pay us. I think that was very logical. Reddit actually is doing the same thing. I heard they're going to go public, um, which is kind of crazy for them. But yeah,
Hmm hmm
it is two fields that Google and Microsoft kind of lack because the way they access information is through the internet, um, and the only way they're getting information is through their search engines, and their search engines can't see X or Reddit anymore. It's been clocked off, and so they can only see basically public news articles, and obviously those take time to write. So Grok and X have the advantage of just being tapped into the live world, um, pretty much in real time. So yeah, I don't know. Elon in general and all of these companies, just every single one of them is groundbreaking in their own ways, and they have advantages that are just far exceed companies in their fields. So uh, yeah, crazy, amazing dude, crazy smart. He really positioned each of these things um, in just the most perfect spot. Ooh.
Yeah, no, he's got a lot of successes. He's controversial figure, obviously, for some of the things he may have said or done. Obviously, every company he's backed hasn't been a winner, but you know, anyone he's human, just like the rest of us. He's not going to be perfect, and I think he's contributed a lot. And I'll be really interested to see, like, when he, finally does move on, and we're able to look back in hindsight, like, just see like what his impact was. Like, will he be remembered as like one of these, great innovators, technological minds, or like just leaders in general who was able to help create things that were insanely helpful to humanity, or is he going to be remembered for giving his son a meme name and posting funny stuff on X?
Probably both, like Bill Gates.
Probably, probably a little bit of both.
Oh, yeah, but I think that about sums it up. Unless you have any more comments about Sir Elon.
Nope, I think that's a good place to stop, man.
All right, well, it was nice chatting with you once again.
Yep, nice chatting with you too, man. Happy to be here. See y'all next week.